Now, the next thing in purchase order is probably the largest addition this age. So this is probably the biggest enhancement that they made. And it's the ability in purchase order now to do RFQs. So a request for quotation. And what they've done is in purchase order entries, given you the option to select a quote, very similar to what you do when you do a sales order quote. So we can come in, we take our next order number. Under order type, you see we have our usual options. And now at the bottom, you see they've added quote. So I'm going to choose my quote and I'm going to go, oh, my ship expire date. I do want to stop here because I want to show you something that I want in options just because this has an effect on. So in the entry tab under purchase order options, they've added a section for quotes. So there's a couple of features that you can set up so that your quotes behave and how you'd like them. Um, One is being use the default order date when generating purchase order. And the default order date is basically today's date. It's actually coming from the defaults field. And I'll show you that when we go back into the order. But this is just saying use today's date when I'm generating a purchase order from this quote. So when I make it active and basically, release it, it will use the order date of today and use the order date from today. Or if I have this checkbox cleared, it's going to use the date of the original RFQ. So when the quote was created. So that's really what that means. So I'm going to want it to default to the day that I'm actually generating it. I do have a default number of days that I can set so that the quote will expire and it automatically populates the date. And I can choose what I want to use for cost. Now I'm going to apologize. I'm going to cancel this because I want to show you those options. Now I have it set to zero cost because my expectation is I want the vendor to fill in the cost and I don't want to give them any, information other than the zero so that they fill it in and not use what I've used but that doesn't have to be the case. You can pick which cost to use if you would like to send that to the vendor. So you can use last cost, average cost, standard cost, zero unit cost, have it prompt. The cost hierarchies is going to be based on your LIFO, FIFO, and your first in, first out. So whatever the last cost or the first cost. Um, Again, I feel like zero cost makes the most sense, but you're not limited to that. So back to purchase order. Take my next number. And again, I'll change this to quote. I'm going to pick my vendor. Now, this is the first vendor that I pick is the vendor that's going to pre-populate all the information on the purchase order header. However, I'm not limited to the one vendor. I'm able to create this quote to go out to multiple vendors. And I do that by hitting the plus icon just to right of the vendor lookup. And it opens up another box that says, hey, tell me all the other vendors you'd like this quote to go to. So I'm going to pick a couple others here. Right. And I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to grab the lines. Let me pick an item. Two of these. And you can see because I have the zero cost set, it doesn't bring a cost in. And it says here, quote item, zero unit cost. So, but it does tell me in the lower left dialog what my actual last cost, average cost, and standard costs are. So I do have visibility in my costs here. All right, I'll flip over to totals. We're not really adding anything here. And then I'm going to hit accept. Right. Now there's a couple ways I can print this. So I can quick print it, or I can print it as a range. Now, the printer icon that we would normally use for our range of purchase order printing um, doesn't print quotes. But if you notice, just to the right of that icon, there's a drop-down arrow. If I click that, you'll see I have an option to do purchase order printing or quote printing. So if I pull up quote printing, and I preview this, you see I get all three vendors that we're requesting the quote from. You can see that on the form, there is not an area for the vendor to fill in. Now, this quote, request for quote, can also be emailed using your standard email functionality that you have in Paperless Office. I don't have that turned on in this demo company, but if you set it up, it will be there and available for you. And this allows me to print a range of POs, or we can do a quick print. And basically, the quick print knows whether it's a quote or not. So you don't have to choose with the quick print. You can just simply quick print this. And I get all three RFQs to go out. Now I'm going to go back to the first one because I just wanted to show you. If you notice, the item code here is not the same item code as the others. And that is because for this vendor, Airway, we have a vendor alias set up. So out of the box, the, the RFQ will print vendor aliases if they are created in your system. So um, it just makes it easy, comes out automatically. Obviously, sometimes you want to see both. So you can certainly turn on your item code to print here as well. And that's pretty easy to do. And as most of you know, every form, every report in Sage 100 can be modified using Crystal reports. All right. Now, so quotes come back and you decide on, well, I don't want to use Airway this time. Maybe their lead time's too long, maybe, whatever happens to be. I want to use one of the other vendors. Now, I'll do all climate. So one of the things I do have to do is change the vendor number in the quote to the vendor that I'm actually going to be releasing the PO for, change that. And then once that is done, I can check the box that my quote is ready to generate. I'll go in and fill in the unit cost that the vendor gave me. Okay. And then I can generate the order. So this is a one-off. I can choose to include the comment lines or the memos. It's going to tell me what the next purchase order number is. Say okay. And now I'm going to come in and you can see 143, 143, excuse me, is now a standard purchase order. There's our item, there's our quantity. Oh, and I didn't accept the unit cost because I didn't tab off that field. And again, too, once the quote is turned into an order, the order is fully editable. So you can see I can still change it. I can add to it if I want to add other items to this.
Quick question, Greg. Is there any tracking of responses?
Not not internally. As I was going through this and and that was something that I had thought about is the way I thought that we could handle this is to attach the um, the vendor's responses as memos. So if the vendor returns a PDF copy, something that we can actually save, then we can attach it to the purchase order as an attachment. Let me go to that last one. So that we'd have a copy of all three of, and I do want to see that the quote does stay out there, but it goes into completed status so that you don't actually lose the quote like you do in sales order, where in the sales order you turn a quote into an order. It that same quote becomes the sales order. In this case, we keep the original quote. We have it show as completed, which means when you do your normal utilities of purging, it will purge out based on whatever the date range you have um, in your setup to keep, how long to keep open purchase orders. So I'm going to say yes, but my thought was because it is to use the memo codes and attachments, so I could. It is just my thought, and then I could attach the return PDF from All Climate, the one from Anders, the one from all the vendors. So I'd have physical copies there that I could go into at any time because these will carry over into history. But I think that's, as far as, I've been able to get with this, that seems to be the workaround for that, if that makes sense.
Think we're following.
Okay. Now there is one other way to generate your standard orders from your purchase order quotes, your RFQs. And let me grab, I think this one's still open. Yep. Da-da-da. All right, so here's one. So if I have more than one quote that I'm working that I want to generate into an order, I can do that. There's an auto generate feature, so I could just come in and check the box of the quotes I'm turning into orders and then use the utility to just generate multiples. So this utility, let's go ahead and I want to say, I'll just do and this should just generate the one that we were, or unless I have another one checked. Yeah, just the one. So just a couple of ways you can do it. You can do it as a one-off using the generate on the actual physical quote, or use the auto generate if you want to do multiples. Might just save a little time. And this again, it's just going to tell me what it's creating. And that's probably the biggest feature that Sage has added into this release. So and I do, it is something that we have been waiting for a long time. So hopefully, there's some benefit to you guys in terms of additional functionality.
Here's Greg's information, should you want to reach out to him directly. Thank you for your time. We know your time is valuable, so we really appreciate you spending a little bit of it with us.